The transport ship shook as it docked with the massive station floating in space. Hyunwoo pressed his face against the small window, watching the metal arms connect with loud clanging sounds. His heart beat fast with excitement. After 2 years of studying xenobiology on Earth, he was finally here. The Galactic Menagerie Station, home to the most dangerous creatures in the known universe. "First time off Earth?" asked the blue-skinned alien sitting next to him. Her name was difficult to pronounce, so she told the human students to call her Vela. Hyunwoo nodded, unable to take his eyes off the enormous station. It looked like a giant wheel spinning slowly around a purple planet. Lights blinked along its surface, and he could see other ships coming and going like insects around a hive. "Don't get too excited," Vela said with a laugh that sounded like wind chimes. "The menagerie is mostly boring. Study rooms, labs, and cages. Lots and lots of cages." But Hyunwoo was excited. He had dreamed of this moment since he was a child, watching documentaries about alien worlds. Earth had joined the Galactic Alliance only 15 years ago, and humans were still the newcomers. Still learning, still proving themselves. The docking process finished and the passengers stood up. Hyunwoo grabbed his single bag and followed the line of students and researchers toward the exit. The moment he stepped onto the station, he felt the difference. The gravity was slightly heavier than Earth's. The air smelled strange, like metal and something sweet he couldn't identify. A tall, thin alien with too many arms stood waiting for them. Its skin was pale gray and its eyes were huge and black. This was a threen, one of the species that ran the menagerie. Hyunwoo had studied their culture. They were traders and collectors, famous across the galaxy for capturing and studying dangerous life forms. "Welcome to Galactic Menagerie Station," the threen said in perfect galactic common, the language that most species use to communicate. "I am Handler Kess. Follow me to your quarters. Tomorrow your studies begin." The group walked through wide corridors made of smooth gray metal. Through windows along the walls, Hyunwoo could see the purple planet below. Handler Kess explained the rules as they walked. Stay in designated areas. Never approach the containment cells without supervision. Never, ever try to feed the creatures. And the most important rule, Handler Kess said, stopping to look at each student. "Do not go to Sector 9. That is where we keep the Ravager." Hyunwoo felt a chill run down his spine. He had heard stories about the Ravager. Every xenobiology student had. It was a creature from Kryn 7, a death world where almost everything wanted to kill you. The Threen had captured it 3 years ago, losing 17 guards in the process. It was supposed to be the most dangerous thing in the entire menagerie. "What is a Ravager exactly?" asked another human student, a girl named Hana. Handler Kess's face showed something like respect, maybe even fear. "An apex predator, 12 feet tall, 6 limbs, covered in scales harder than most metals. It has never been tamed. It has never stopped trying to escape. We keep it in our strongest containment cell, and still it tests the barriers every single day." That night, Hyunwoo couldn't sleep. His small room had a narrow bed, a desk, and a window showing the stars. His roommate, a human named Dae-hyun, was already snoring on the other bed. But Hyunwoo's mind was racing. He kept thinking about the Ravager. What did it look like? How did it move? Why had no one been able to study it properly? The next morning, orientation began. They learned about the station's layout, safety procedures, and research protocols. Hyunwoo tried to pay attention, but his mind kept wandering. When the handler mentioned that advanced students could request observation time with specific creatures, Hyunwoo immediately knew what he wanted to do. After 3 days of basic training, Hyunwoo submitted his request. He wanted to observe the Ravager for his research project. The 3 handlers laughed at him. One of them, a female named Handler Riss, shook her head. "Human, you understand nothing," she said. "The Ravager is not for study. It is for containment only. We keep it alive because the consortium paid much money for it. But it cannot be understood. It is pure violence." "But every creature can be understood," Hyunwoo argued. "Every species has patterns, behaviors, and reasons for what they do. I want to try." Handler Riss looked at him for a long moment. Then she laughed again. "Fine. You want to waste your time staring at a monster? Go ahead, but you stay behind the barriers. You follow every safety rule. And when it kills you through your own stupidity, I will tell your family you were warned." The next day, Hyunwoo went to Sector 9 for the first time. The corridor leading to the containment cell was darker than the rest of the station. Fewer lights, thicker walls. He could feel the heaviness in the air, the sense that something dangerous was near. When he reached the observation area, his breath caught in his throat. There, behind a shimmering energy barrier and triple-layered transparent walls, was the Ravager. It was massive, bigger than any creature Hyunwoo had ever seen in person. Its body was covered in black scales that seemed to absorb the light around them. But running across those scales were lines of bioluminescence, glowing patterns in blue and purple that pulsed slowly like a heartbeat. It had 6 limbs, each ending in claws that looked like they could tear through steel. Its head was angular and fierce, with eyes that glowed a deep amber color. The Ravager was pacing back and forth in its large cell. Its movements were controlled and deliberate. This wasn't a mindless beast throwing itself against the walls. This was something thinking, planning. Hyunwoo sat down on the observation bench and pulled out his data tablet. He began taking notes, sketching what he saw, the way the Ravager moved, the pattern of its glowing scales, the way its head turned slightly whenever a sound echoed through the corridor. He stayed for 3 hours that first day. The Ravager mostly ignored him, but twice it stopped pacing to look directly at the observation window. Those amber eyes seemed to stare right through the barriers, right into Hyunwoo's soul. He felt no hatred in that gaze. Only intelligence. Only awareness. Over the next weeks, Hyunwoo came back every day. Other students thought he was crazy. Daehyun warned him that he was wasting his time. Even the handlers mocked him when he passed by. But Hyunwoo noticed things. The Ravager's bioluminescence changed colors based on what was happening around it. Red when the handlers brought food. Blue when it was alone and calm. Purple when it was thinking, analyzing. The creature moved in patterns, testing different parts of its cell. It was searching for weaknesses, yes, but doing so with intelligence and patience. One day, during his observation, Hyunwoo's data tablet slipped from his hands. It clattered across the floor and slid under the barrier, stopping just inside the cell's outer boundary. Hyunwoo's heart sank. That tablet had all his notes, all his research. The Ravager turned its massive head toward the tablet. It could have crushed it easily with one claw. Instead, the creature moved forward slowly. It lowered its head and gently pushed the tablet with its snout, sliding it back under the barrier toward Hyunwoo. Hyunwoo stood frozen, unable to believe what he had just seen. He picked up the tablet with shaking hands. The Ravager backed away, its scales glowing a soft blue color. Their eyes met through the transparent walls. In that moment, Hyunwoo understood. This wasn't just a dangerous animal. This was a person. A thinking, feeling being trapped in a cage far from home. And somehow, for some reason, it had chosen to help him. Everything changed after that day. Hyunwoo stopped seeing the Ravager as his research subject. He started seeing it as someone worth knowing. Someone worth saving. 3 months passed since Hyunwoo first arrived at the menagerie station. He spent almost every free hour in Sector 9, observing the Ravager. His research notes filled dozens of files. He had documented over 200 distinct bioluminescent patterns. He had recorded the creature's responses to different sounds, lights, and environmental changes. Every piece of evidence pointed to the same conclusion. The Ravager was intelligent. Not just animal smart, truly intelligent. But nobody believed him. "Hyunwoo, you need to let this go," Daehyun said one evening in their shared room. He was sprawled on his bed studying for an exam on atmospheric composition. "You've spent 3 months watching that thing pace around its cage. What has it gotten you?" "Understanding," Hyunwoo replied, not looking up from his tablet. "I've learned more about cross-species intelligence than any classroom could teach me." "You've learned that you're obsessed," Daehyun countered. "The other students talk about you. They think you're crazy. Even some of the handlers are worried." Hyunwoo finally looked at his roommate. "The Ravager recognizes me now. When I enter the observation area, its scales change to blue. That's its calm color. It knows I'm not a threat. It's trying to communicate." Daehyun sat up, his face serious. "Listen to yourself. You're talking about it like it's a person. It's an animal. A dangerous one. Please just finish your research period and request a transfer to a safer project. Study something that won't eat you if the barriers fail." But Hyunwoo couldn't let it go. The next day, he submitted his research findings to his academic supervisor, an elderly Threen named Scholar Ven. Hyunwoo waited nervously outside the scholar's office, hoping his work would make a difference. When Scholar Ven finally called him in, The old Threen's face showed disappointment. I have read your research, human Hyun-woo. It is thorough, detailed, and completely worthless. Hyun-woo felt his stomach drop. But the patterns, the responses, the deliberate behaviors are all explainable through instinct and conditioning, Scholar Van interrupted. You see intelligence because you want to see it. This is the human problem. You become emotionally attached. You see faces in clouds and meaning in random patterns. The Ravager is a predator, nothing more. With respect, Scholar Van, I believe you're wrong. The old Threen's eyes narrowed. I have studied xenobiology for 60 of your Earth years. I know the difference between intelligence and instinct. The Ravager has a brain capable of hunting strategies and territorial behaviors, but it has no language, no culture, no tool use. It is not a person. Hyun-woo left the office feeling defeated, but deep down he knew what he had seen. The way the Ravager watched him. The gentleness when it returned his tablet. The changing patterns that seemed too deliberate to be random. He wouldn't give up. That same week, changes began happening on the station. Director Voss, the Threen administrator who ran the menagerie, called a general meeting. All students and researchers gathered in the main assembly hall. Director Voss was a heavy-set Threen with dark skin and sharp eyes that missed nothing. The consortium is implementing efficiency measures, Director Voss announced. Operating costs must be reduced. Effective immediately, we are cutting power usage by 20%. Non-essential systems will be reduced. Containment fields will operate at minimum safe levels. Night shift staffing will be reduced by half. Worried murmurs spread through the crowd. A researcher from the front row stood up. Director, minimum safe levels for containment? Some of these creatures require maximum containment at all times. The Ravager alone? The Ravager's cell has redundant systems, Director Voss said sharply. Even at minimum power, it cannot escape. These measures are necessary. The consortium is facing financial difficulties. We adapt or we close. Questions? Nobody dared ask more. The meeting ended and students filed out in worried groups. Hyun-woo found Dae-hyun in the crowd. This is dangerous, Dae-hyun whispered. Cutting power to the containment fields? They're insane. They're desperate, Hyun-woo corrected. The consortium must be in real trouble. Over the next 2 weeks, the effects of the efficiency measures became obvious. Lights were dimmer in the corridors. Temperature controls fluctuated. Worst of all, handlers reported several close calls with containment failures in the lower security sectors. Nothing catastrophic yet, but enough to make everyone nervous. Hyun-woo continued his visits to Sector 9. The Ravager seemed more agitated than usual. Its scales pulsed with colors Hyun-woo had never seen before. Deep reds mixed with orange, colors that spoke of stress and anger. The creature paced faster, occasionally stopping to stare at the energy barriers holding it captive. You feel it too, don't you? Hyun-woo said quietly during one visit. Something's wrong with the station. The Ravager's amber eyes fixed on him. For a long moment, neither moved. Then the creature's scales shifted to a dark purple color. Hyun-woo had learned that this meant the Ravager was thinking, processing information. It was as close to agreement as he could hope for. One night, Hyun-woo couldn't sleep. Something felt wrong. He checked the time. 3 a.m, station time. Dae-hyun was sleeping soundly. Hyun-woo sat up listening. The usual hum of the station system seemed different, quieter, almost strained. He decided to go to Sector 9. He told himself it was just to check on the Ravager, but truthfully he needed to see that everything was secure. He dressed quickly and slipped out of his room. The corridors were nearly empty. Only a few night shift handlers moved through the dim passages. Hyun-woo made his way to Sector 9 without seeing anyone. The heavy door to the observation area slid open with a hiss. Inside, the Ravager was not pacing. It stood perfectly still in the center of its cell, head raised as if listening to something. Its scales glowed a color Hyun-woo had never seen. Bright white, pulsing rapidly. A warning color, what is it? Hyun-woo asked, stepping closer to the observation window. What do you hear? The Ravager turned its head slightly toward him. Then it moved. Fast. The creature threw itself to the far side of its cell, pressing against the wall, its scales flashing red. That was when the explosion happened. Somewhere deep in the station, something went catastrophically wrong. The entire structure shook violently. Hyun-woo was thrown to the floor. Alarms started blaring, loud and urgent. Emergency lights flashed red. Through the walls, he could hear the sound of tearing metal and rushing air. Hyun-woo scrambled to his feet. On the other side of the observation window, the Ravager's containment field flickered. The shimmering barrier of energy that formed the last defense between the creature and freedom wavered like a candle flame in wind. The station shook again. More explosions closer this time. Through the speaker system, a mechanical voice began repeating in Galactic Common, "Containment breach. Multiple sectors. Emergency protocols active. All personnel evacuate to designated safe zones." Hyunwoo's blood ran cold. Containment breach. That meant creatures were loose. And if multiple sectors were affected, he looked at the Ravager's cell. The energy barrier flickered again, weaker this time. The transparent walls were strong, but without the energy field, they wouldn't hold forever. Not against something as powerful as the Ravager. He should run. Every instinct screamed at him to get out of Sector 9 to reach the safe zones. But his feet wouldn't move. He stood frozen, watching the containment field grow dimmer and dimmer. The Ravager stood in the center of its cell now, perfectly still, watching him. Its scales had gone completely dark, no bioluminescence at all. Just black scales and glowing amber eyes. Another explosion, this one in Sector 9 itself. The lights went out completely. Emergency lights kicked in, bathing everything in red. And the containment field around the Ravager's cell died with a sound like breaking glass. For several heartbeats, nothing happened. The Ravager stood motionless. The transparent walls remained, but they were no longer reinforced by energy. They were just thick plastic and metal between Hyunwoo and the most dangerous predator in the galaxy. Then the Ravager moved forward, slowly, each step deliberate. Its claws clicked on the metal floor of its cell. It approached the transparent wall, and Hyunwoo could see just how massive it truly was. 12 feet of pure muscle and predatory power. The creature raised one claw. Hyunwoo closed his eyes, waiting for the sound of breaking walls, for his short life to end in a far place from Earth. But the sound that came was different. A gentle tapping. 3 times, tap, tap, tap. Hyunwoo opened his eyes. The Ravager was touching the transparent wall softly, its scales beginning to glow blue again. That calm color, that recognition color. And then, with a terrible cracking sound, the transparent walls began to fail. The transparent wall shattered into 1,000 pieces. Hyunwoo threw his arms up to protect his face as fragments rained down around him. When he lowered his arms, the Ravager stood just 10 feet away. Nothing between them now. No barriers. No protection. Just a human and a creature that could kill him in seconds. Hyunwoo's legs trembled. He wanted to run, but his body wouldn't obey. He could only stare at the massive predator before him. Up close, the Ravager was even more terrifying. Each scale looked sharp enough to cut. Each claw was the length of Hyunwoo's forearm. The creature's breath came in steady, controlled huffs. The Ravager took one step forward, then another. Its amber eyes never left Hyunwoo's face. "Please," Hyunwoo whispered. He didn't know if he was praying or pleading. Maybe both. The creature's scales flickered through several colors. Red, purple, blue, then settled on blue, that calm color. The Ravager lowered its massive head until it was level with Hyunwoo's chest. This close, he could see the patterns in its scales, the intelligence in its eyes. Then, from somewhere down the corridor, came a sound that changed everything. A high-pitched shriek. Not human, not Threen, something else. Something hunting. The Ravager's head snapped toward the sound. Its scales flashed to bright red. In one fluid motion, the creature moved between Hyunwoo and the corridor entrance. It spread its 6 limbs wide, making itself as large as possible. A low rumble came from deep in its chest. Not quite a growl. More like a warning. 2 creatures burst into the observation area. They were smaller than the Ravager, about the size of large earth dogs, but there were 2 of them. Their skin was gray and wet-looking. Too many teeth filled their mouths. Their eyes were black and empty. Hyunwoo recognized them from his studies. Skraelings, pack hunters from a swamp world, individually weak but deadly in groups. The Skraelings saw Hyunwoo and shrieked again. They started forward, hunger clear in their movements. But the Ravager didn't move. It stood like a wall between the hunters and its prey, except Hyunwoo wasn't its prey. The realization hit him like a physical force. The Ravager was protecting him. The first Skraeling lunged. The Ravager moved faster than something so large should be able to move. One massive claw swept through the air and caught the Skraeling mid-jump. The sound was terrible. The Skraeling hit the wall and didn't move again. The second Skraeling hesitated, but hunger drove it forward. It tried to dart around the Ravager to get to the human behind. The Ravager's tail, which Hyunwoo hadn't even noticed before, whipped out and caught the creature in the side. The Skraeling tumbled across the floor, scrambled up, and ran back down the corridor, shrieking in fear. For a moment, silence filled the observation area. Then the Ravager turned its head to look at Hyunwoo. Its scales had returned to blue. The creature's eyes seemed to ask a question. "Are you hurt?" "I'm okay," Hyunwoo said, his voice shaking. "Thank you." The Ravager huffed, a sound that might have been acknowledgement. Then it moved toward the corridor entrance, its body language clear. "Follow me." Hyunwoo's mind raced. The station was in chaos. Creatures were loose. He needed to reach the evacuation points. But could he trust this creature? It had protected him once, but why? What did it want? As if sensing his hesitation, the Ravager looked back. Its scales pulsed blue, then purple, then blue again. That pattern. Hyunwoo had seen it before. It was the same pattern the creature used when it was thinking, when it was trying to solve a problem. "You want to help me?" Hyunwoo said, understanding flooding through him. "You're choosing to help me." The Ravager's scales glowed brighter blue. "Yes." Hyunwoo took a shaky breath and stepped forward. "Okay, I trust you." They moved into the corridor together. The alarms continued to wail. Red emergency lights cast everything in blood-colored shadows. Bodies lay on the floor. Some were Threen handlers. Others were creatures from the menagerie, killed in fights with each other or with the guards. The Ravager moved carefully, always keeping Hyunwoo behind it. Several times other loose creatures appeared in the corridors. Each time the Ravager drove them away with displays of aggression, roars, and threatening movements. Nothing wanted to fight the massive predator. They turned a corner and almost ran into a group of survivors. 5 beings pressed against a wall. 3 were Threen, including Handler Riss. 1 was a tall insectoid alien, and 1 was human, Vo-Ra, a senior student Hyunwoo knew from the cafeteria. Handler Riss saw the Ravager and raised her weapon, some kind of energy rifle. "Get down, human," she shouted at Hyunwoo. "No, don't shoot!" Hyunwoo jumped in front of the Ravager, spreading his arms wide. "It's protecting me. It's helping." "Move aside. That creature is dangerous." Handler Riss's hands shook as she aimed. "It killed 2 Skraelings that were trying to eat me," Hyunwoo said quickly. "It's been guiding me through the station. Please just lower the weapon." Vo-Ra stepped forward, her eyes wide. "Hyunwoo? Is that really true?" "Yes, I swear it." The Ravager remained still behind Hyunwoo, its scales a neutral gray color. It made no aggressive moves toward the group. After a long, tense moment, Handler Riss lowered her weapon slightly. "This is insane," she muttered. "Completely insane. The whole station is insane right now," Vo-Ra said. She looked at Hyunwoo. "We're trying to get to Docking Bay 7. That's where the evacuation shuttles are. Can your friend get us there?" Hyunwoo almost laughed at the word friend, but he turned to the Ravager.
"Can you help us reach the docking bay?"
The Ravager's head tilted slightly. Its scales flickered through several colors, then it moved forward, taking point at the front of the group. It looked back once, making sure everyone followed. They moved through the damaged station as a strange convoy. The Ravager led the way, its senses far better than any human or Threen. Twice it stopped the group before they walked into danger. Once it smelled a toxic gas leak that would have killed them. Another time it heard a pack of creatures waiting around a corner and led the group through a different route. More survivors joined them along the way. Word spread quickly through the emergency communication system. "Follow the Ravager. It's leading people to safety." Impossible as it sounded, desperate people were willing to try anything. By the time they reached the section near Docking Bay 7, their group had grown to 15 survivors, various species, all terrified, all following a creature that had been locked away as too dangerous to exist among the civilized races. But the path to Docking Bay 7 was blocked. They stood before a massive open space called the Central Atrium. It was a huge area, hundreds of feet across, with walkways and platforms at different levels. Under normal circumstances, it was beautiful. Now it was a nightmare. At least a dozen different species of escaped creatures filled the atrium. Some fought each other. Some hunted in packs. Some simply wandered, confused and frightened. Getting through that space would be suicide. "There has to be another way," Vo-Ra said, her voice tight with fear. A young Threen male stepped forward. His name badge said G1 Maintenance. He pulled out a data pad and showed them a map. There are maintenance tunnels. They go around the atrium. We could use those. How small are the tunnels? Hyunwoo asked, though he already knew the answer. Ji-won looked at the Ravager, then back at Hyunwoo. Too small for it. The group fell silent. Everyone looked at Hyunwoo, then at the Ravager. The choice seemed clear. Use the maintenance tunnels and live. Or try to cross the atrium with the creature and probably die. Hyunwoo's heart felt like it was being torn in half. This creature had saved his life, had protected all of them, and now he was supposed to just abandon it? No, he said firmly. We find another way. We're not leaving it. Handler Riss grabbed his arm. Human, be reasonable. It's an animal. Your life matters more than... Its life matters just as much as mine, Hyunwoo interrupted. It chose to help us when it could have just escaped. That makes it more civilized than most people I've met. The Ravager had been watching this exchange. Now it moved forward and began drawing in the dust on the floor with one claw. Lines and marks. The survivors watched in amazement. Is it drawing a map? Bora asked. Hyunwoo knelt down studying the marks. His heart raced with excitement and disbelief. It is. Look, that's the atrium. And this line, it's showing us a cargo route. Along the edge of the atrium, wide enough for it to pass through. Ji-won checked his data pad. It's right. There is a cargo route there. I didn't think of it because it's dangerous. Exposed, but it could work. The Ravager straightened up, its scales glowing blue. It looked at Hyunwoo with those amber eyes. Trust me. We follow the Ravager's route, Hyunwoo said. The cargo route ran along the outer edge of the central atrium. It was a narrow walkway, maybe 15 feet wide, with a railing on one side and the wall on the other. Below, through gaps in the metal grating, they could see into the atrium where creatures fought and hunted. Above, more walkways and platforms created shadows and hiding places. The Ravager went first, moving carefully on the grated floor. Its claws made soft clicking sounds with each step. Hyunwoo followed close behind, then Bora, Handler Riss, Ji-won, and the rest of the survivors. 15 beings trying not to make noise, trying not to attract attention from the horrors below. They were halfway across when something moved in the shadows above. A creature dropped from an upper walkway. It was huge, at least as large as the Ravager. Its body was long and serpentine, covered in blue-black scales. Its head was triangular, with fangs as long as Hyunwoo's hand. He recognized it from his studies with growing horror, a void serpent, one of the most deadly predators in the galaxy. The void serpent landed on the walkway ahead of them, blocking their path forward. Its tongue flickered out, tasting the air, tasting fear. The Ravager immediately pushed Hyunwoo behind it and faced the serpent. The two predators stared at each other. For a moment, Hyunwoo hoped they might both back away, avoid conflict. But he saw the serpent's eyes and knew there would be no peace. It was starving, desperate, and it saw the group as food. The serpent struck first, its body uncoiling like a spring. The Ravager met it head-on. The two creatures collided with a sound like thunder. They rolled across the walkway, claws and fangs flashing. The Ravager's scales glowed bright red. The serpent's tail whipped around, trying to wrap around the Ravager's body. "Run!" Bora shouted. "Everyone run!" But Hyunwoo couldn't move. He watched the fight with his heart in his throat. The Ravager was strong, but the serpent had advantages. It was longer, more flexible, and Hyunwoo saw with horror that its fangs were dripping with something. Venom. The serpent's fangs sank into the Ravager's shoulder. The Ravager roared in pain. Its scales flashed from red to purple to black. But it didn't let go. It sank its own claws into the serpent's body and held on. The survivors had started moving, running along the walkway toward the docking bay. But Hyunwoo stood frozen, watching the creature that had protected him now suffering. "Dying, maybe. Hyunwoo, come on." Bora grabbed his arm, trying to pull him away. The serpent's coils wrapped tighter around the Ravager. The Ravager's movements were getting slower. The venom was working. Hyunwoo could see it in the way the creature struggled, in the dimming of its bioluminescence. Something broke inside Hyunwoo, a barrier between thought and action. He pulled free from Bora's grip and ran back toward the fighting creatures. "What are you doing?" Handler Riss screamed. "You'll die!" Hyunwoo's hands found an emergency flare mounted on the wall. He yanked it free and ignited it. Bright red fire erupted from the end. He ran toward the void serpent, waving the flare, shouting at the top of his lungs. The serpent's head turned toward him, its eyes fixed on the bright flame. For just a second, it loosened its grip on the Ravager. That second was enough. The Ravager, summoning strength from somewhere deep inside, drove its claws into the serpent's skull. The serpent convulsed once, then went still. Its body uncoiled and fell from the walkway, tumbling down into the atrium below. The Ravager collapsed onto the metal grating. Its scales were dark, barely glowing. The wound on its shoulder leaked dark blood. Its breathing was labored and wet. Hyunwoo dropped to his knees beside the creature. No, no, no. Stay with me, please. The Ravager's amber eyes found his face. They were dimmer now, but still aware. Still intelligent. One of its claws reached out slowly and touched Hyunwoo's hand. Gentle, careful not to hurt him even now. Bora and Jiwon ran back to help. We need to move it, Jiwon said. The docking bay is close. Maybe there's medical equipment. How? Handler Riss asked. It weighs thousands of pounds, but they tried anyway. The survivors who remained gathered around the Ravager. Some lifted. Some pushed. Some simply provided moral support. Slowly, painfully, they managed to move the massive creature along the walkway. The Ravager tried to help, using its remaining strength to crawl. Hyunwoo stayed by its head, talking to it constantly. You're going to be okay. We're almost there. Just hold on. They reached the entrance to Docking Bay 7. The large doors were already open, and inside, Hyunwoo could see evacuation shuttles. Some were already full, preparing to leave. Others were still loading passengers. The bay was crowded with survivors from all over the station. Several Threen guards stood at the entrance with weapons. When they saw the Ravager, they immediately raised their guns. Stop! That creature cannot enter the docking bay. One of them shouted. This creature saved our lives, Hyunwoo said, his voice hard. This creature protected 15 people and got them here safely. If you shoot it, you'll have to shoot me first. Bora stepped forward too. He's telling the truth. That Ravager is the reason any of us are alive. More of the survivors spoke up. Their voices joined together, all telling the same story. The guards looked at each other, uncertain. Finally, they lowered their weapons and stepped aside. Getting the Ravager into the docking bay was harder. The creature was barely conscious now. Its scales had gone completely dark except for a faint blue glow around its chest. That glow was getting weaker. They managed to drag it inside and away from the main crowd. Hyunwoo found emergency medical supplies in a locker. He didn't know if human medical equipment would work on the Ravager, but he had to try. He cleaned the wound as best he could and wrapped it with bandages designed for hull breaches. The fabric was strong and sealed automatically when applied. Bora found him working. Hyunwoo, there's a problem. The last shuttle is almost full. There's room for you and maybe 2 more people, but no room for the Ravager, Hyunwoo finished. He looked at the massive creature beside him. Its breathing was shallow. Without proper medical care, it would die. Then I'm not going. What? Don't be stupid. The station is falling apart. Director Voss activated the self-destruct. We have maybe 10 minutes before this whole place explodes. Hyunwoo's hands stilled on the bandages. Self-destruct? He announced it over the speakers 5 minutes ago. Said he'd rather destroy the station than let the consortium's investment be lost. We need to leave now. Hyunwoo looked at the Ravager, then at Bora, then back at the creature. 3 months ago, he came to this station to study alien life, to learn about creatures from other worlds. He never expected to make a friend. Especially not like this. I can't leave it, he said quietly. It saved my life. More than once. What kind of person would I be if I abandoned it now? Bora opened her mouth to argue, but a voice interrupted from behind them. The kind of person who wants to live? Daehyun appeared, breathing hard, his face covered in dirt and sweat. But lucky for you, I'm the kind of idiot who knew you'd do something like this. Daehyun? I thought you were already evacuated. His roommate shook his head. I got on a shuttle and everything. Then I realized you weren't there. Figured you were either dead or doing something incredibly stupid. Looks like it's the second one. He gestured toward the back of the docking bay. There's a cargo hauler back there. It's damaged, barely spaceworthy. But it's big enough for your friend. Hope surged in Hyunwoo's chest. Will it fly? Maybe, probably, I'm not making any promises. But it's better than staying here and dying. Bora grabbed both their arms. Then we need to move. Now. Director Voss said 8 minutes until detonation. It's been 3 minutes since then. They organized quickly. Jiwon and several other survivors helped them drag the Ravager toward the cargo hauler. The ship was old and battered, with scorch marks on its hull and a cracked viewport. But the engines hummed when Dae-hyun powered it up. Getting the Ravager inside was a nightmare. The cargo ramp barely fit the creature's bulk. They had to push and pull and pray. The Ravager tried to help, crawling with the last of its strength. Finally, it was inside, sprawled across the cargo hold floor. "Everyone else, get on the passenger shuttles," Bo-Ra shouted. "Those of you helping here, time to go." The other survivors ran for the remaining shuttle. Hyunwoo, Dae-hyun, and Bo-Ra stayed with the hauler. "You're coming with us?" Hyunwoo asked Bo-Ra. She grinned, though her eyes were scared. "Someone needs to make sure you two idiots don't kill yourselves. Plus, I kind of want to see how this story ends." The docking bay shook violently. Warning sirens changed pitch, becoming more urgent. A mechanical voice echoed through the speakers. "Self-destruct in 2 minutes. All personnel evacuate immediately." Dae-hyun scrambled into the pilot's seat. "Everyone strap in. This is going to be rough." The cargo hauler shook as its engines roared to life. Hyunwoo strapped himself into a jump seat in the cargo hold, staying close to the Ravager. Bo-Ra took the co-pilot seat next to Dae-hyun. Through the cracked viewport, they could see other shuttles launching, their engines bright against the darkness of space. "Hold on," Dae-hyun shouted. He pushed the throttle forward. The hauler lurched out of the docking bay. The artificial gravity failed immediately, and Hyunwoo's stomach dropped as they went into freefall. Then the ship's own gravity kicked in, weak but functional. The Ravager slid slightly across the floor before Hyunwoo braced himself against it, trying to keep it steady. Behind them, through the viewport, they could see the Galactic Menagerie Station. It looked smaller now. The purple planet Velcros Prime glowed behind it, beautiful and uncaring. Come on, Dae-hyun muttered, pushing the damaged ship as fast as it would go. "We need more distance." "Self-destruct in 30 seconds," Bo-Ra read from a display panel. She'd managed to sync with the station's emergency broadcast. The hauler rattled and groaned. One of the engines sputtered. Dae-hyun fought with the controls, sweat dripping down his face. "This thing is held together with hope and bad welding." 20 seconds, Bo-Ra said, her voice tight. Hyunwoo looked down at the Ravager. The creature's eyes were closed now. Its breathing was so shallow he could barely see its chest moving. But its scales still glowed faintly blue. "Still holding on." "You're going to make it," Hyunwoo whispered. "We both are." 10 seconds, Bo-Ra announced. The other evacuation shuttles were spreading out, putting distance between themselves and the station. The hauler was slower, heavier, damaged. They were falling behind. 5, 4, 3. Dae-hyun cut the main engines and fired the emergency thrusters, trying to squeeze out every bit of speed. 2, 1. The Galactic Menagerie Station exploded. It didn't happen all at once. First, small explosions rippled across its surface like fireworks. Then the reactor core went and the entire station became a miniature sun. The light was blinding. The shockwave that followed hit the hauler like a giant hand. The ship spun. Metal screamed. Warning alarms filled the air. Hyunwoo held onto his seat with one hand and the Ravager with the other. Through the spinning viewport he saw stars, then the purple planet, then stars again. Dae-hyun fought the controls, trying to stabilize their spin. Slowly, painfully, the hauler stopped rotating. The engines were still running. They were alive. "Is everyone okay?" Bo-Ra called out. "Okay is relative," Dae-hyun replied. "But we're breathing. We're not dead. That's something." Hyunwoo checked the Ravager. The creature hadn't moved during the chaos. Its breathing was still shallow, but it was alive. "We need medical help." "Real medical help. There's an outpost," Bo-Ra said, studying a navigation display. "Outpost Talon. It's the nearest safe place. About 3 hours away at our current speed." "Can this ship make it 3 hours?" Hyunwoo asked. Dae-hyun checked various readouts, his face grim. "Maybe. 2 of our engines are damaged. Life support is working, but unreliable. We'll have to go slow and careful. But yeah, I think we can make it." Those 3 hours were the longest of Hyunwoo's life. He stayed in the cargo hold with the Ravager, monitoring its breathing, changing its bandages, doing everything he could think of. He talked to it constantly, telling it stories about Earth, about his childhood, about the first time he saw pictures of alien worlds and knew he wanted to explore the stars. He didn't know if the Ravager could hear him, but he talked anyway. It felt important. Bo-Ra came back to check on them several times. "You really care about it, don't you?" "It's not an it," Hyunwoo said. "I don't know what to call it. He? She? But not it. Not anymore. Fair enough, Bora said. She sat down next to him. What you did back there, running toward that serpent to save them, that was either the bravest or stupidest thing I've ever seen. Probably both, Hyunwoo admitted. I didn't really think about it. I just couldn't let them die after everything they'd done. Them. Bora repeated, a small smile on her face. You're already thinking of it as a person. Because they are. Maybe not human. Not even close. But a person. Someone who thinks and feels and chooses. Someone who could have run away when the barriers failed but decided to help instead. They sat in silence for a while, listening to the Ravager's breathing and the creaking of the damaged ship. Finally, Daehyun's voice came through the intercom. I can see Outpost Talon. We're going to make it. Outpost Talon was a small facility, a trading post and rest stop for ships traveling through this sector. When the damaged cargo hauler limped into docking range, they were met by security and medical teams. Word of the menagerie disaster had already reached them. Getting the Ravager off the ship was another challenge. The outpost medical team initially refused to treat it. That's one of the menagerie creatures, the lead doctor, a four-armed alien named Kess, said. We're here to help people, not dangerous animals. This dangerous animal saved over a dozen lives, Hyunwoo said firmly. Please, I'm begging you. Bora stepped forward. The human is telling the truth. I was there. I saw everything. That creature protected us when it could have just escaped. It fought a void serpent and nearly died doing it. If you won't help because it's the right thing to do, then help because the galaxy needs to see this, needs to know what happened. Dr. Kess looked between them, then at the Ravager lying in the cargo hold. The creature's scales were almost completely dark now. Finally, the doctor sighed. Fine, but it stays in quarantine. And I'm not promising anything. I've never treated a Kryn 7 species before. They moved the Ravager to a large quarantine chamber. The medical team worked for hours, synthesizing treatments based on the creature's biology, flushing the venom from its system, repairing the damaged tissue. Hyunwoo watched through the observation window, refusing to leave. Days passed. The Ravager stayed unconscious. Hyunwoo barely slept, barely ate. Daehyun and Bora took turns sitting with him, making sure he took care of himself. On the third day, Galactic news services started arriving at Outpost Talon. The story of the menagerie disaster had spread across multiple systems, and somehow security footage from the station had survived. Footage of the Ravager protecting Hyunwoo, footage of it leading survivors to safety, footage of it fighting the Void Serpent. The recordings went viral. Billions of beings across the galaxy watched as a creature that was supposed to be nothing but a mindless predator made choices that some civilized people would never make. It sparked debates on every news channel, every social media platform. What defined sapience? What defined personhood? Could intelligence exist in forms that didn't look or think like the dominant galactic species? On the fifth day, the Ravager's eyes opened. Hyunwoo was sitting in the observation room when it happened. Those amber eyes found him immediately, and the creature's scales flickered through several colors before settling on blue. You're awake, Hyunwoo said, his voice breaking. You're going to be okay. Dr. Kess entered the quarantine chamber carefully. The Ravager watched but didn't move. The doctor ran some tests, checked the healing wounds, then looked at Hyunwoo through the window with an expression of amazement. It's cooperating, Dr. Kess said. I've treated hundreds of species, and I've never seen a supposedly non-sapient creature cooperate like this. It understands that we're helping it. Over the next week, the Ravager recovered, slowly but steadily, and during that time, representatives from the Galactic Alliance arrived. A formal inquiry was opened into the menagerie disaster, into the treatment of captured creatures, into the definition of sapient rights. Hyunwoo was called to testify. He stood before a council of representatives from a dozen species and told his story. He showed them his research. He explained every moment, every observation, every choice the Ravager had made. This being deserves freedom, Hyunwoo concluded. Not because of what I think or feel, but because of what they've demonstrated. Intelligence, choice, compassion. If those aren't the marks of a person, then what are? The council deliberated for 2 days. Finally, they called everyone back to hear their decision. Hyunwoo stood in the chamber, his heart pounding. The Ravager had been brought in, still healing, but strong enough to stand. It stood beside Hyunwoo, its scales a calm blue. The council leader, an ancient being that looked like a tree with eyes, spoke. We have reviewed all evidence. We have studied the recordings. We have consulted with experts across the galaxy. Our decision is unanimous. The chamber fell silent. The being known as the Ravager has demonstrated sapience beyond reasonable doubt. It is hereby granted full status as a protected sapient being under Galactic Alliance law. All rights and freedoms afforded to recognized sapient species shall apply. Cheers erupted in the chamber. Hyunwoo felt tears streaming down his face. The Ravager's scales shifted through multiple colors, bright and vibrant. Then it did something Hyunwoo had never seen before. It lowered its head and gently pressed it against Hyunwoo's chest. Not aggressively, not threateningly, just contact, connection, gratitude. In the months that followed, everything changed. The Galactic Alliance launched rescue missions to retrieve other members of the Ravager's species from various facilities. It turned out there were 17 of them scattered across the galaxy. All were freed.